Welcome to the Alltech Radio podcast on YouTube. This is a show where you learn about the news and technology related to working in the world of IT. No matter what your job is in IT, we cover all aspects of work-life balance, job duties, salary, and everything related to computers and technology. I am your host, Professor Robert McMillan, and joining me is my co-host, IT consultant Scott Porninga. And welcome once again to the show, Scott.
Good morning, Robert. Good to be here.
Yes, it is. And for those of you in California, it rains here all the time, so stay where you are. Do I need a college degree for a sysadmin job is one of the questions this week. And if you'd like to have any questions answered, just go ahead and feel free to drop that in the comments section of this video. Do I need a college degree for a sysadmin job? So, Scott, why don't you go ahead and start and tell us what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I'd have to say ultimately no. You don't need that for it. I think the experience can be good. I studied a lot of programming, computer science at Oregon State, and although I could not write a program from scratch anymore, I think the knowledge and the background helps me in managing programmers. I've got programmers that I put on projects, so the experience is good. But as far as being a sysadmin, there's so many unique things to the tools, and the tools are constantly changing, and there's all these things that a college degree would give you a basis for being able to learn and absorb information as far as actual hands-on information for doing your job. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Huh? Well, what I found is, with getting a job, anything in IT, but specifically in sysadmin, is experience, as you mentioned, is the big thing. But it's really hard. What if you don't have experience? We have people who are watching us now who have no experience, and they're wondering how do they break into the industry itself. Mm-hmm. So besides experience, the other two things that are important are certifications and education. So you can have, any one of those. You can have all three of those. But if you have none of those, it's impossible.
Education is going to get you the interview. It'll get you in the door.
Yep.
So there is that going.
And certification sometimes too. That'll definitely help out. And we do talk a lot about different kinds of certifications.
Yep.
So
A+ would be a biggie just to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Microsoft Office 365 stuff is really big now, so that would be a good path to start down because that's not going away.
And when you and I started in this business, there were no degrees in getting the job of a sysadmin. There were no IT operations degrees at that point. Network administration, IT person, that kind of stuff. So what I did was I started out at a community college that was teaching how to repair computers and how to network computers, stuff like that. It was like a 5-month course. Cost several $1,000s, which was a lot back then. And but it was so worth it. It was like 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. And boy, by the time I was done with that, I knew a lot more than I did when I started out. Nowadays, of course, you have the options for online or on-campus learning, which is fantastic. But I did end up, using that knowledge I had earned during that time to take my A+ and pass my A+. And that got me my first job. So I was really glad to do it. It was at a place called Liquid Container. Liquid Container made a lot of the bottles and stuff that you see on the store shelves for, Gatorade and for a whole bunch of different things,
They make containers for liquids.
There you go. And it was in West Chicago, and then they branched out and bought some other companies. So they're actually much bigger than they were back then. But very nice people, and I was really lucky to have that job before I moved out to Portland. And one of the other questions that we have here is, what should be my first IT security certification? So this is a great question. What is it in your opinion, Scott?
Well, there is a Security Plus, which is kind of a broad, agnostic, hardware agnostic type of security certification. Cisco offers theirs. The different manufacturers have different certifications available. But that might be a good place to start. It's just a Security Plus. You've seen more of them out there, Bob. Robert?
Yes, I have seen a lot of certifications, a lot of students trying to break into the industry. I agree with you. The Security Plus is the first thing you want to get for IT security. You still have to get the A+.
That's a given.
Yeah, but that's not really security. I mean, there's a few things in it that is security, but yeah, it's Security Plus should be your first certification.
Yeah, I remember when I took my A+ test, they were asking me about the interrupts for keyboards and mice.
Oh yeah, I had that
in Windows XP.
I took it much earlier. It was Windows 3.1. Yeah, that was even before Windows 95. I mean, that goes back a little ways. So, the first IT security certification, Security Plus, is a great one. It's also, if you're a veteran and you're trying to get into IT security, the Department of Defense wants you to have that as well, which is interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. I went onto their website to, find out what it is that they wanted, and that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. All right, so besides your first IT certification, then of course you want to get onto the more advanced certifications if you want to get into cybersecurity. The Cisco CCNA, routing and switching, is good for networking, of course, but they also have some certifications in security as well. So there's the two biggest ones that I see out there are the ISC squared, which has the CISSP, which I took back in 2004, and then the I can't remember the other one. There's sort of like a CISSP light,
Yeah.
And then you have the EC Council, and the EC Council has ethical hacking certifications and PCI compliance and things like that.
So you get to have fun and not be a thief.
Yes, exactly. A white hat hacker. That's right.
Yeah.
I think Black Hat is going on in Vegas this month. Black Hat Security Conference. Yeah. It has been a long time since I've been to that. So, and for those of you who remember Andy from the Alltech radio show in years past, he goes there fairly often. And he said that the Wall of Shame is still there after all these years. Did you hear about the Wall of Shame?
I think I've heard a few things about it. Why don't you tell us more?
So the Wall of Shame is if you get hacked, then they take a screenshot of you, either from your webcam or whatever whatever it is that they hacked into your computer, and then they print it out and they put it in the Wall of Shame. So if you walk by and your face is on there, then that's a bad thing. Yeah. That is a bad thing.
To shave off the beard, color my hair.
Yeah, I remember when the last time I went, they had so poor Wi-Fi at that time that I had to turn off my firewall because I figured it was part of slowing things down. And I was right. As soon as I turned my firewall off, I was able to communicate with my email server. And but within a few seconds of doing that, a virus popped up on my screen. Fortunately, my antivirus killed it off. But I could have been on the Wall of Shame. It would have been very embarrassing. So I turned my firewall back on. I'm like, I can get email another time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So another thing that we get asked a lot and was asked this week was what is typically the first job that you get when you get into the field of IT, and that would typically be help desk.
Definitely, that's if you're going for a direct IT job. Now, I kind of migrated into IT. I was working at a company, and I knew more about computers than anybody else. So it just kind of migrated over towards that and ended up doing PC work and server work and stuff like that. So that can happen too. If you want to get a job directly into IT, help desk is probably the quickest way to get in.
And what's funny is after all these years, you're still in help desk because it doesn't matter how high up you go. Either things are being escalated from level 1 and 2, or there's not enough people to answer all the lines that are coming in. So, or emails or whatever it is. Because these things get turned into tickets, and then the tickets have a maturity date before the boss starts getting upset, right?
Yep.
So you're still typically in help desk throughout your career in one way or another.
Well, we are a service industry. We are here to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
The different levels that you help at may be different, but like with me, some days I'll be rebuilding servers, and other times I need to help them with the printer.
Yeah. Weren't you saying you were helping somebody out in India today? Is that right? Which is like the exact opposite of what happens to most technicians.
Yeah, there's some folks in India that needed to remote into a server in the States, and the application that they were using, the resolution wasn't coming through properly, and they couldn't figure out how to fix it, and so they had me jump in there and take a look.
There you go. That's
There's a little setting inside the display resolution that says, let Windows fix blurry applications.
Ah.
Turn it on. That took care of it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's funny. I did a YouTube video on that years ago, and I wasn't sure it was going to get any kind of traction. And sure enough, thousands of people are like, "Wow, I never even knew this existed." So that's great. Did they have any trouble with your accent?
No, it was all via email.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's funny.
I've done conference calls with these people, though, and sometimes you have to listen really carefully.
Yes, that is true. Yeah. So help desk. Now, what's interesting though is if you start out in the cybersecurity field instead of starting out in help desk, you're going to typically start out staring at log files. So I remember I had a student a few years back that said, hey, I got my first job. I was teaching them at PCC, Portland Community College. And they said, I got my first job, and they hired me at PCC. And hey, that's fantastic. And so he emailed me again a month later, and he said, I hate this job. I said, you hate this job? What's wrong? He said, they got me looking at log files all day long. I mean, all I'm doing is looking at log files. And I said, hang on a second. This is how they, this is first off, this is what level 1 IT security is looking at log files. Second, they're testing you to see how it is you're going to handle this. Are you going to be able to handle the tedium of this? Are you going to be able to find good information out of these log files and going to be able to take action on them? There's reasons, for doing this, and somebody has to look at this because artificial intelligence isn't going to really help you. Helps to a certain degree, but
it's not going to catch the nuances in some of that data there that indicates something, but it's not really clear, and they're just going to breeze over it, and you need to take a look at it.
Exactly. So I encouraged him to stay, and then a few months later, he called me back or emailed me back and said, "Hey, guess what? I got promoted, to the next thing, and things aren't terribly boring anymore. And now the next new guy's got to sit there and stare at log files." I'm like, yeah, that's what happens.
Job, but somebody's got to do it.
Staring at log files is the help desk of IT security. So you're just going to have to get used to it. And as you progress in IT security, there's still going to be some log files that you'll have to review because you see a problem, you're like, how did this get started? Hey, you gotta look at log files. So feel free to go ahead and post any comments that you would like in the comment section there below the video, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Cybersecurity threat predictions for the summer of 2023. This comes from governmenttechnology.com or govtech.com. So this is the cybersecurity threat predictions. And the biggest one that I got out of this was artificial intelligence is going to become a threat due to social engineering attacks. So artificial intelligence isn't just for you typing in a question and then spitting out an answer. It can also talk. It can create videos. It can create audio. It can do a lot of different things. So hackers are using this in social engineering attacks. How many times have you gotten a phone call where a real sounding person says hello, how are you, and whatever, and even says your name, but it's not an actual person that's saying it. And then it turns out that you're having a conversation with, a bot, an artificial intelligent bot instead of a person. Have you gotten any calls like that?
I've gotten a few, and I generally just hang up.
Yeah.
They generally call, as a vendor, they're trying to get you to agree to something. Also, remember in the years ago, they had, there was a problem with people you get a call and they record that call and then they reorder the words, they chop it up such that it sounds like you are agreeing to something. You've agreed to a verbal contract.
Yes.
So really, you need to be careful who you talk to no matter what.
Yeah.
And that was people doing it, not AI. It's probably even easier now with AI.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many times I had people say, hey, you agreed to this contract. Yeah, it happened multiple times. And that was old school, and it's even more sophisticated, at this point. So that is definitely one of the risks that we're going to be seeing is AI then mimicking your voice by recording what it is that you say, and then of course they can program once they've recorded your voice, then they can record AI to say whatever it is that they want in your voice. So that is a tricky one. Cloud-based breaches, this is another big risk for 2023. Although, the cloud breaches have been a problem for quite a while, but they're saying that cyber criminals are getting better at breaching the cloud than they used to. So there was a time when it was, there's some pretty good firewalls in place in order to, protect your cloud resources. In some ways, even better than what you could do yourself in your own local area network. But I'm not sure if that's true anymore. I think that they've had some time, the criminals have had some time to figure out how things can be misconfigured and things like that, where, you can be breached, such as the Oregon DMV. Got hacked, and every single person in Oregon got their driver's license hacked. Everybody. Yeah, yours and mine. Yeah. Yeah. Now we got to deal with it. Enhanced phishing attacks is another big risk that's happening this summer. They are, sending emails as though they're coming from trusted people, which is a pretty common thing. The intention of deceiving individuals into giving out sensitive information. So I remember just a couple of years ago, we had a car dealership, one of those that you hear commercials all the time. And the owner of the place was an aging person, and that car dealership has now been taken over by his son because the father had passed away. Well, what was not in the news, but was passed down from their IT administrator, which is one of the reasons why I'm not saying who it is, just because it would give that away. Is that this person got this person's assistant got a phishing email, and the phishing email, if you're not sure or don't know what that is, basically it makes it look like it's being sent, say, from the boss or somebody maybe your mother or something like that. And this phishing email came into the assistant, and it looked like it came from the boss and said, hey, send over, I can't remember the exact dollar amount, it might have been $80,000 or $100,000. Send this money to this account. Now that's something this assistant does a lot. So it wasn't really all that unusual that this request came through. So she sent the money. Then the owner found out, and again, he's an older person, and if you're the owner of a car dealership, you already probably have a 160 over 100, blood pressure on a good day, right? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it stressed him out so much he died. He had a heart attack. So that's technically murder, but it's never going to be prosecuted. So that's some pretty terrible stuff. That goes on.
Yeah, I've been trying to train clients to take a look at the from address. Mm-hmm. Even if the name showing there is proper, mouse over it.
Yes, you hold your mouse over it.
The address, and then you get this jumble of letters, jumble of numbers, dots.
Something, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, because just the visual, what you're seeing, doesn't mean that that's who actually sent it. If you mouse over it, it will show the hidden text behind it of exactly who's done it. Now, for those of you who are cybersecurity students, check out techpublishing.com and take a look at my video I did recently on how to read the hidden text in an email to see who's really sending this email and what your email server thought of it. So
yeah, you can go through and say, oh, it hit this server first, and then it hit this server, and then it hit this server, and you can get times and IP addresses and everything.
Yeah, exactly. You can trace it all the way back to the source. And it also tells you how much the server thought that it was going to be spam. You know, like there's a certain score you get before it gets sent on.
Right.
So yeah, interesting stuff that you can check out if you are into that kind of thing, getting ready to get your first job. Zero-day vulnerabilities and supply chain attacks. So zero-day vulnerability is where there's no antivirus or anti-malware signature to kill off a virus. So if you're using Windows Defender or Kaspersky or ESET or whatever it is you're using, Symantec, McAfee, they all have what's called a signature file for all the malware that comes in, you know, possibly into your computer from an email or a website. And a zero-day attack means that there is no file, there's no inoculation, no vaccination to kill off this virus.
I haven't seen it before.
Yes. And so that's called a zero-day attack. Now, some better anti-malware products will kill those off. How is it that they do that, Scott?
Well, they take a look at the activity of it, what it's doing. Is its actions normal or not? And I've gotten some false positives on that, but in general, you want to leave that stuff on because it does catch things that are behaving outside the norm. I've got a client that uses a program called Darktrace that looks at normal activities of users. And she'll get warnings when a user does something outside the norm. So same type of thing. It monitors the program. It looks at what the program does, what it's doing, what it's accessing. It says it's this type of program, but it's accessing files in this part of the computer, which it shouldn't do. So it uses knowledge like that to assess whether it's a risk or not.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's one of the good reasons to be buying an anti-malware program rather than using the free ones, because Windows Defender does not have a good zero-day capability. And all the free ones, they don't have good zero-day capabilities. So just to give you an idea of zero-day, how the free ones are different from the ones that cost money as far as quality goes. I remember reading an article that Kaspersky Antivirus had put out fake viruses. But of course, the people who wrote the article did not really understand how this all works. So we got the story from Eugene Kaspersky himself. He told us exactly what happened, and unfortunately, the people who write these articles, they're not sometimes all that technical, so it just gets out incorrectly. So what happens is that maybe something that you all don't know is that all the antivirus, anti-malware companies have a pool of antivirus signatures. And this is a pretty cool thing that you may not even be aware of, because there are over 1,000 new viruses that come out every hour of the day. So how is any single company going to do this? Plus, you're duplicating the efforts of every other antivirus, anti-malware, company out there. Now, the reason we say antivirus / anti-malware, malware is actually the umbrella term of everything. So I should probably just say anti-malware. It's just not everybody knows that. All right, so all these anti-malware companies had decided to get together. All the ones that are legitimate had got together, and they throw into this pot, basically, that they all feed from, this website that only these companies can gain access to. And so a new virus comes in, somebody writes an antivirus, signature file. They incorporate it into their own anti-malware software, and push it down to you to protect your computer. But they also drop that file into the pot. Now, all the other anti-malware companies can go into the pot and grab that signature, so they don't have to go in and create it themselves. And then they put it into there. So Symantec will go in and pull in something that Kaspersky dropped in, for instance, and they'll go in and that's how they'll push that anti-malware signature to your computer if that's what you're using. So all these legitimate companies, they put they do this every hour of every day. Now, the free anti-malware companies, sometimes they worm their way in, speaking of malware, right? They worm their way in and they get access to this pot. But remember, they're doing this all for free. So they don't want to create anti-malware signatures because that costs money to hire experts to do that. So they just pull from the pot for free, and then they push out this anti-malware product to people, and they don't charge them for it. So Kaspersky got tired of this because he's actually paying people to do this, right? So is Symantec, so is McAfee. They're paying people legitimately, and all these free anti-malware products are not doing anything. They're just taking advantage of all this hard work. So to prove that this was happening, because all the free companies were saying, "Oh no, we're doing these ourselves." So to prove this was happening, Kaspersky dropped in a couple of fake ones. Now he didn't put in a fake virus. He put in a fake antivirus signature, that basically said a couple of files on your Windows computer that were legitimate files, but not necessary to run your computer. A couple of these files, it said it was going to be a virus when it really wasn't. So really, it was a no harm antivirus or anti-malware, a couple of signature files, just to prove that it was happening. So sure enough, these free anti-malware companies yanked, these two, fake signature files, and then their customers started having these pop-ups that saying, "Oh, we found a virus," and that kind of thing. So the people who write for these magazines and websites jumped all over that, of course, with the wrong information. And Kaspersky said, "Hey, look, all I was doing was proving that these free companies aren't doing any work."
They're leeching off us.
Exactly. That's all we were doing. So then, when we got the rest of the story, Paul Harvey, then we totally understood, how all that worked. Because I had no idea that that's where anti-malware companies were doing. Did you know that before this?
Yeah, I had word of that before.
Oh, you did? Okay, so this was not news to you. It was definitely news to me. And I think it's news to a lot of people out there as well.
You remember when McAfee had a bunch of stuff listed in their signature files that were Windows operating system files? And it just toasted all those computers.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that story, but I live just like within stone's throw distance of Intel in Hillsboro, and so one day when I was driving around the area taking care of clients, whatever it was, I noticed that all these people were standing outside Intel. I mean, I'm not talking about a few people here. I'm talking the entire organization of Intel was standing outside of Intel. And they were like, and it was around lunchtime. They're like, what do we do? I guess we go to lunch. So they started overwhelming all of the restaurants and everything in the area because every single person decided, they were off for the rest of the day. So I thought, well, this is kind of weird, And a couple of days later, the story came out that McAfee, as you had mentioned, had put out an antivirus signature, like what we were talking about, or anti-malware signature, that was bogus. And it turned out that it said certain Windows files that were required to run your computer were viruses, and they weren't. And so what happened was every computer in Intel worldwide shut down. No business was done that day. Yeah.
I think shortly after that, Intel said, McAfee, you're giving us your company.
Yes, that is the other part of the story that a lot of people don't know about. Because probably, 6 months later, I think they waited a while until things kind of calmed down.
To look a little bit better.
Yeah. So Intel said, hey, you got a choice. You can either pay us for our worldwide operations being down for a day, or you can just sell your company to us for a song. Maybe it may have been $0. It may have, I don't know what it was, but it was super cheap, I'll bet. Yeah. And so McAfee said, well, we have no way of paying for a full day of Intel outage. So I guess Intel now owns us. So Intel started owning McAfee. And then Intel had this idea that, again, this is something that's insider information not everybody had heard about. So Intel had this idea to incorporate anti-malware into the motherboards, because at that point, Intel was still making motherboards. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Intel boards were good.
Yeah, they were pretty solid, but for some reason, after a while, they said, we can't make any money off it, so we're just going to stop doing it. Yeah. But at that time, they were still making boards. And so they said, hey, let's put McAfee antivirus or anti-malware into our boards to keep viruses from launching when you start up your operating system, regardless of what operating system you're using.
Yeah,
And
it'll take care of rootkits.
yes, it'll take care of rootkits, and maybe they're going to even expand on that and put some additional memory onto the board to handle, the McAfee, because McAfee antivirus is not a lightweight client. It uses a lot of resources. So putting that onto a motherboard was a bit of a risk because you needed to have more storage on the motherboard separate from the hard drive. Anyway, so that didn't work out, and they gave up on that, put McAfee up for sale. It's now McAfee's gone from Intel, and then Intel says, we're tired of making motherboards, we're all done.
Yeah. That used to be my motherboard of choice, but I ended up going to Asus after Intel stopped.
Yeah, I did too. I think we ended up selling a lot of Asus motherboards at that point. They're pretty solid boards. They don't always work as advertised, but for the most part.
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. As far as you building a standard office machine, or you building an engineering workstation.
Right. And nowadays, hardly anybody even builds desktops except for gaming. I mean, it's and graphics and stuff. It's hardly even used. I mean, everybody gets issued a laptop now.
Pretty much, and you can get some pretty good laptops for decent prices now.
Yeah.
I've got one or two clients that still like the option of building their own custom machine.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I remember one client was asking about video cards. They do engineering and drafting work. And it's like, well, you can spend as much on video cards as you want.
Yeah.
Some of those are just ridiculously expensive.
Well, yeah, mostly because of Bitcoin, and then everybody, of course, unloaded their Bitcoin. NVIDIA, which makes a lot of the video cards, their stock started to tank, and then AI came out, and then NVIDIA went right back up again because it's easier for video cards to do the calculations for artificial intelligence than the processor, the central processor, the CPU. But another really scary thing, it's not necessarily for businesses, but for people out there who get, say they're on Facebook or other social media and they've got videos. So one of the most insidious attacks, I mean, this is just the meanest thing that anybody could do to you, is they'll go on Facebook and they'll listen to and watch some of your videos that you post up. And then they'll take, say, the sound of a child, and they'll have artificial intelligence mimic that child, and then they will, deduce your phone number. You'll find out, who you are based on your posts on Facebook and other social media. Not too hard to do. I've had to do it before, so it's not hard to do it. So then what they'll do is they'll call you up on the phone and say they have kidnapped your child, and then your child will then speak in their voice from artificial intelligence saying, they're in trouble and they're crying and, just horrible stuff. And then they'll want you to pay, of course, some fee in Bitcoin or cash or whatever it is to try to release them. And of course, they don't have them at all. So if this happens to you, make sure you tell your families, your friends, their parents, their grandparents, that before they fork over any money, just put them on hold and then call up your child or whatever it is that they're saying it is, and just make sure that they're okay. Because most likely they're not being kidnapped. And that's just a really rare thing anyway, to be kidnapped in the United States.
Yeah, that's one of the big risks of putting that information out there, like pictures of your kids, audio of your kids, all that is just not a good idea.
It's not.
I mean, you're trying to share with family, oh, it's great and everything because they're across the country and it gets them, contact, but there's some big risks involved.
Right. Absolutely. So if you do post on Facebook, if you do it private, that's great. Just make sure that you don't accept friend requests from people you don't know, because that, or even people that you do know. I mean, you think that this is that person. You might want to just check with them. Hey, did you send me this friend request, or is this coming from a fake account?
Yep. Definitely be careful of that. I had my Facebook account hacked once.
Oh, you did?
And people were getting, they would send in invites to people that I was already connected with, saying they were me.
Oh,
so
wow.
then you have to send out something saying ignore any requests for that, and then you have to go to talk to Facebook, you have to kill the account because it's not really me. So It's a pain.
It is. Speaking of social media, a story that I heard this week, although maybe it's been out for a while, it finally came to me this week, is Twitter's having a real hard time. Because Musk is a bit of an idiot, so the value of this thing is half what it was just a year ago, and so he fired a bunch of really smart people at Twitter, right?
The people that were all making it go before.
Yes. And so Zuckerberg over at Facebook, he starts this new venture. Have you heard about this new venture?
I have not.
It is called Threads. So instead of sending out a tweet, you're sending out a thread. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, what does it do, Bob?
What does it do? Yeah, it's exactly the same thing as Twitter, except for, it's called Threads. Now, the people that used to work at Twitter are now working at Threads for Zuckerberg. So what's interesting is that now Musk is suing Zuckerberg for taking his people. Well, you fired them. You fired them.
Take them, they came to us.
Yeah, now when you fire people, I don't know if that same non-security or the non-compete clause is in effect as if it is if they leave of their own accord.
I know in Oregon the non-competes quite often are unenforceable because it's restraint of trade.
Yeah.
It's like, this is my field to work in. There's things like, not calling previous clients and things like that. You can't stop me from doing what I trained to do.
Exactly. And plus, you need to have a 2-week cooling off period of when you do sign, one of these types of agreements before it's even effective. So if somebody says, all right, you're going to start work today, and here, sign this non-compete, and then start working. All right, well, it's automatically invalidated because you have to wait 2 weeks. So there's all kinds of reasons why non-competes are not going to be effective in whatever state that you live or whatever country you live. So I would definitely, look into that kind of thing. Remote, what's that?
There's a phrase that always comes to mind when I think of Musk and Twitter.
Yeah.
There's a phrase from Fiddler on the Roof. When you're rich, they think you really know.
Yeah.
Because he's not a smart guy. People go, he's Tesla.
Yeah.
He bought Tesla. Oh, he's SpaceX. No.
He's not the guy doing those math calculations. I know that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He bought his way into all this stuff just because he has the money. He doesn't really have the brains.
Yeah, didn't that come from some diamond mine or some other mine in that nowadays would not be very PC?
South African. His parents got the money from diamond and emerald mines or something like that.
Oh man.
Yeah, blood money.
I can only imagine how horrible working conditions those were.
Oh.
Yeah. So another question that comes up a lot is which is more secure, working in office or working remotely, or maybe even hybrid. Like you're remoting into the office or VPNing into the office. That kind of thing. There's a lot of different feelings about this. I feel that being in office is really the only way that real security can happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you really have more control that way. Say if you had an office of 20 people and all of a sudden they're working from home, you don't have the same firewall security, the control over the hardware itself, all sorts of reasons that you're not as secure as you would be if you were in the office.
Right. And so a lot of companies, of course, are using, who had never used this before, are using VPN. So people VPN in from home to the office or VPN into the Azure or AWS cloud, either one, or other clouds. And then they start to work. But you have something called a split tunnel. A split tunnel means that when you're doing work where you're connecting to the office, then it goes through the VPN tunnel. But when you're just browsing, websites like news sites and shopping sites, you don't go through the VPN tunnel. You go directly out, to the internet. And that's where the security problems come in, because you could pick up a virus and then you could pass that on through the VPN tunnel. And I've seen that happen. Now, most companies or most people like to have that split tunnel, because if you have a full tunnel, then that means all the traffic has to go through the office or through the cloud before it goes out to the internet, even just simple web, shopping and stuff like that. And it turns out that it slows things down tremendously to the point where it's almost unusable. So you end up with clients or staff complaining to their boss, and their boss says, "Oh, fix this," and then they split the tunnel, and then they cause all the security problems. So full tunnel is really for remote workers. If you're connecting to, company resources remotely, is really the only way to go. And I'm sorry that it's slow, but that's the way it is.
And if you do the split tunnel, you need to make sure to put proper security in place. I've got clients that will buy extra licenses for antivirus products for their users' home machines because they know they're going to use them to access stuff. So they go ahead and make sure they're protected also.
Yes, but even so, it's still a lot more likely. I know it's not popular with workers to want to go back to the office, and I totally get that. Nobody wants to commute for an hour or two in the morning and another hour or two at night. I remember working in downtown Portland and having to drive in from Beaverton. By the time I got done parking, got into my office and sat down, I was done for the day. I was tired. Yeah. So, and then of course I had to go for my 8 hours, and then I had to go do it all again in reverse. And you get home to family and kids, and you're like, oh, I got no energy for them anymore.
It's tired.
Oh, yeah, it is really, I feel for people that still have to do that. So I totally understand the remote work. I mean, that gives you your life back, to have remote work. So you mostly work remotely, right, Scott?
Yeah, I like working remotely with the clients that I work with. It's all remote anyway. So I would be remoting in from their things if I was in the office or if I was working from home. But one point that comes to mind with the we were talking about people getting started in IT. Being on site or being at the office among other engineers, other technicians, is really a benefit when you're first starting out. The knowledge that gets transferred, the hints, no, do it this way, do it that way, just the mentoring that takes place in an office situation is so much better than trying to do it over Teams. Yes,
that is true. You do have to end up going to clients every now and then, especially if their internet is down or their server is down. They have no way to get to their resource. But for the most part, I would say most IT jobs nowadays can be done remotely, with the occasional meeting where you should have to go in and have certain types of meetings, with people. But you do end up running the risk of having to go to a lot of people's homes. Because if they're also working remotely, you're going to have to get used to, going over people's homes, listening to their dogs bark and getting scratched by their cat and, all that kind of stuff. And if you're not a smoker and, coming home smelling like smoke, that's no fun either. But it is what it is. Yeah. Let's see what else is going on in the world of technology. China's President Xi, or Dictator Xi, urges greater innovation amid tech curbs from the United States. So one of the things that Biden is doing that Trump did not do, very much of, is that he's cutting off China in a way that makes a lot of their tech companies not profitable. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but they're closing the ability for China's companies to sell their tech products here. They're making it almost impossible for some of these companies to sell to other countries' companies as well. So Dictator Z is not amused.
Well, he better get his house in order then.
Yeah.
A lot of companies there that don't represent China in the best light. I remember a lot of gray market products for big names coming out of China. Cisco.
Lots of Cisco.
With chips in there that were not the original chips, and they had back doors in them. There was a problem there for a while.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of Cisco, I just finished this course for LinkedIn Learning. It hasn't been published yet, but it will be here shortly, on the next generation of firewalls for Cisco. And they have a new operating system, which really threw me. So those of you who are used to the Cisco routers and switches and things like that, maybe even with Meraki, which Cisco purchased a while back, and they made it look as much like Cisco as they could. The firewall is completely different now. So you remember in the past, it was way easier to edit a Cisco firewall using command line than it was using their clunky graphical user interface.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, and so the new next generation firewall comes with FX OS is what they call it, FX operating system, and the problem is that when you go to configure this the very first time, you have, it's based on Linux, by the way, you have a choice. You can either choose to manage this by command line, or you can choose to manage it with the GUI, but you cannot do both.
Or you used to be able to do both.
Yeah, not anymore. You have a choice. Now, the GUI options, there's two of those. One is you can manage the graphical user interface that comes with the firewall on the firewall. It looks very similar, to the old GUI, except for it's web-based now. Or you can pay a few bucks, and I'm saying that facetiously. You can pay a few bucks by signing into Cisco's cloud version of the GUI, and then you can put all of your firewalls into one place. So you can see all your firewalls, and then you can manage them, all from one cloud portal, which is great, except for it costs money.
Mm-hmm.
Cisco used to make this. You remember the big package of CDs that Cisco would send out to people, and it came with a whole bunch of different graphical user interface programs that you would install locally on your computer. I don't know. Did you remember seeing those? Back in the Pack Info days.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So though it's just like that, except for it's now in the cloud, and you pay a fee to do it. But the nice thing about it is you can now add older devices into this, cloud as well. You can add Meraki devices. You can add, other things into this cloud as well, as long as it's still a supported product. So if it's one of the newer routers or switches, then you can put that in with your firewalls and other things, and manage them all in one place. So again, it doesn't happen from all the different ones, but
now once you choose to have the graphical interface, can you ever go back to command line, or are you stuck?
You have to re-image that thing and go back to be able to and start out that way. Yeah. And
you could export your config, re-image it, and then import the config. Although if the config is for the graphical interface,
it's part of no, it doesn't. I don't think that would work. I mean, you can import and export, but only to the same kind of setup. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But like I said, the weird thing is that it's no longer, the access-list 100, TCP, it's no longer like that. The command line is a whole new operating system, and it's all Linux-based. So if you're not a Linux, person who's used to command line, and even if you are, you still have to learn a whole bunch of new commands if you decide to go that way. So I see roughly 0 people doing that.
Yeah. Is it more or less cryptic than iOS used to be?
I went with the GUI only, so I never even got, once I realized what was going on, because I was trying to manage it, using the command line when I was first getting used to the whole thing, and it was just really weird. It's like nothing's working. So I looked up on Cisco's website and I saw all the different commands, and they're all brand new, just as cryptic as they used to be. So I started trying to type some of them, and it said, sorry, but you've already signed up for the GUI. You can't use this. In so many words. It said it in different words, but so I'm like, all right, I'm not used to using the GUI for firewalls, but okay. So then I went to the built-in website, and then I started configuring it that way. It felt like I was giving up, to be honest. But
give in to the graphic interface.
Yeah. But then as I got into it, I realized it's so much like Meraki, even though it's not. But it's very similar to Meraki, that if you already know Meraki, then it's not that tough to do this. And you don't have to pay a monthly fee for it. With Meraki, of course, you pay a monthly fee or they turn it off. Again, I don't know why people even bother with that. But
yeah, it's never subscription models for mission-critical pieces of hardware is not a good idea.
Right, yeah. Well, did you have a good 4th of July?
It was interesting. I got a story.
Oh, let's hear it. Do tell.
My son-in-law's truck got stolen on the 29th of June.
Oh, wow.
So, we get a call from Clackamas County Police on the 4th of July.
Okay.
At about 4:30 or so, and we found your truck. And they were waiting out there and told us where it was. So my daughter dropped my son-in-law off. I took him out there to get it, and they had changed the lock set, the ignition.
Wow. Oh, does it have like the fob and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, it doesn't have a fob. This is a 94.
Oh, okay.
94 Ford Ranger.
Oh, so they physically ripped the key out.
And what he did, he had a different lock set. He needed to replace the ignition lock set anyway.
Oh, okay.
So he had one in the car.
Oh.
He used the one he left in the car and replaced it. So we couldn't start the car, and we looked around. Long story short, the police came back. We said, there's a few things here you need to take a look at. So the police came back, and we're on this hill, it's this old country road, and he looks down there and says, that guy down there walking away from us, did he pass you, walking by? No, he did not. I'll be right back. So he went down there. Another police officer came from the other direction, so we're watching. It's about half a mile away down this hill. Long story short, that was the guy.
The guy who stole the truck.
They found the keys on it.
Oh,
he was camping out in the Estacada area. The truck was there. He was on his way back.
Oh.
Been arrested. There's 6 charges against him, not even including the truck yet.
Wow, that's so lucky.
Yeah.
Wow.
Found in possession of a firearm.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we found 9mm bullets in the truck.
Oh.
Yeah, he planned on coming back.
Wow, you were lucky you didn't get shot when he came back.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, do we want to be around here if he comes back?
Yeah, exactly.
Or should we just let him have the truck?
Wow, that's a pretty scary story.
So, but we got the truck back.
But it had a happy ending, so that's great. That's great.
Yeah. How was your 4th of July?
It was good. Good. Spent it down in Seaside and had a lot of family over. And we didn't light off a single fire because it bugged the dogs too much. But plenty of other people did for us, so that was nice.
Excellent. Yeah, you can just sit there and enjoy other people's money.
We for $50, we bought these dog ear protections. So it looks pretty funny on him because they're kind of big, and he's such a little dog. But it kept him from hearing the fireworks.
So actually kept them on?
It kept, yeah. Well, yeah. My wife had previously put it on for like 5 minutes and then 10 minutes, and he got eventually, he got used to it and he stopped trying to shake him off. So she had planned ahead by, she's really good with that kind of stuff. I just would have stuck it on him, and he would have flung him off and be like, well, that didn't work. But she knows better than I do about that stuff. Good thing she raised the kids mostly. So,
that's a scary thought.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually worked really well. So if you want that for your dog for next year, I don't know, did you get a new dog?
No, we do.
Oh, you do not have a new dog. Oh, your last one passed away and you're done with the dogs, huh?
Yeah, we had 3 from the same litter, and we're not ready to take on another small child again.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Totally understand. Well, it's been another fun and exciting Alltech Radio Show podcast with you, Scott. I'm glad that we got a chance to get together and do that. And if you have any other questions or comments, just go ahead and post them there in the YouTube site. And we'll see you again next week.